Welcome to the first panel of the panel discussions. Thanks to the programming committee for setting it up. My name is John Herman, and I'm going to introduce to you, and we're going to go along this way because, and I spoke a bit with SLADS and the organizing group. This group represents various eras of those who have been stewards of Camp Pathfinder, not your average camp, and particularly representing sustainability and the ethos of sustainability, where it was and where it is and where it's going in that order. So I'm going to start off in this direction and move this way, just to say a little bit about where and how these folks were picked for this panel. Jay Jennings, who was around during the Mac era, and Sky Folks, and the June crew, the evolution of the Power crew, talking about development of the docks and the waste systems and the infrastructure of camp. Next on the line, I think, who do we have next is Shrub, and I have my notes here. Was the role with Eric Willers and Chris Brackley, and developed the concept of vision for this camp, and can talk a little bit about how that evolved. Bob Gallagher, or no, actually Bob was around during the Brackley time. I'm trying to figure out where the Shrub piece is. Well, you'll talk about that. Right. Sorry. All right, sorry. Pete was around the Gil Stanley time and now I'm not going to do this. You're gonna have to say it yourself. But we're gonna go from this side out to say a little bit, and the idea is talking to Will to say just a little bit about what was going on in your time and what your piece of it was here at camp. I'm going to start out with a quote from Theodore Roosevelt, and that'll be just about the termination of my already awkward panel. But I have been preparing for this for over 10 minutes, so if I just had 15. So this was from Theodore Roosevelt's 7th annual message to Congress, December 3rd, 1907, to the Senate and House of Representatives. The conservation of our natural resources and their proper use constitute the fundamental problem which underlies almost every other problem in national life. As a nation, we not only enjoy a wonderful measure of present prosperity, but if this prosperity is used aright, it is an earnest of future success such as no other nation will have. The reward of foresight for this nation is great and easily foretold, but there must be the look ahead. There must be a realization of the fact that to waste, to destroy our natural resources, to skin and exhaust the land instead of using it so as to increase its usefulness will result in undermining in the days of our children the very prosperity which we ought by right to hand down to them, amplified and developed. And if there's an ethos of Camp Pathfinder then, and certainly more than ever now, it is that ethos. So in the easiness of Jay starting out, because I can go to my right there, you want to say something about what it was like then?
Well, thanks. Is this on all right? Yeah, I was here as a camper in 77, and then took care of the island with Sky in the mid to late 80s. I would start with the story about the main tank in the fort rusting out, but you guys are eating, so. But that was a mess. To say the least. But, you know, the thing I'd like to briefly comment on, and I'm interested in everybody's opinion, either here or in further conversation, but the evolution of facilities with the advent of first I think Sky and I introduced a power cord to the generator. Before that, we were working with Harry Davis to build all the tents by hand, and I'm sure, that was an advancement over, the tools that they had prior to us. But so everything was done by the generator, and I questioned the whole hydro thing, but environmentally it just had to happen because, the diesel we were hauling around and spilling, and it was, certainly not the healthy way to do it. But there's much reward for that advancement, but there's also risks that I see with regard to kind of a creep of technology and electricity that I know it's there's great reward, but I also think there's a risk of it getting a little too out of hand.
I guess carrying on with what Jay was saying there, of course, I was around at the time when we brought in the hydro and the helicopter brought the first transformer in, and we buried all those lines in concrete across rock in Stalker Park there. And so, yeah, of course, there has been creep, right? It moved into the lower office and the teepee, and of course, that really made outfitting nice, having light instead of lanterns in there. And so I guess, what are we, 20 plus years past that time, and I suppose the rate isn't too bad, considering the amount of time, and I think at least we're assured that we'll never see it intense. If not, then Glenn might be in for a little trouble. But so yeah, the hydro and it coming in certainly made a big difference. Without having a whole lot of direction here on what to talk about.
Well, why don't you actually? What was that like? Because that was a big move, bringing that in terms of what its impact was going to be on the culture of the place, the history of the place. Was it going to ruin it? The whole tension between technology and practicality and us.
Well, certainly the practical side of it is, like Jay said, the amount of money we were spending on diesel fuel, on generators, on maintenance of the said pieces, and the time and efforts by the person in that position to do that, who couldn't then do other things, was great. And I think when Mac actually did the math, it turned out his return was going to come fairly quickly on that. So it was nice to be able to move beyond just spending all this time working on power and getting power here and making the kitchen run and the emergency runs to town when the diesel ran out.
Was there worry that it was going to ruin the place because we were going to get gentrified?
I don't remember a fear of that. I remember the turning on a light switch without a hum in the background was very odd the first time. I think it helped improve our relations with some neighbors by removing the generator. And so, all in all, I got to say it's a positive move with some risk, of course.
So, Pete, what's that same tension like in terms of what you've seen happen here in that tension between technology, stewardship, and tradition?
Well, I've seen, and I didn't get to, be part of the area that didn't have hydro. Everything that I've ever done here is included electricity, and quite honestly, I think it's changed the pace and how quickly we're able to get things done, and as far as where we're able to, build on the infrastructure, whether it's building a tent platform, with hauling that cord out. I can assure you that those cords go away as soon as the job's done. It's not a trip on cords every day as far as the hydro goes. Many of the things that we do, and I'm in the today part of this. I actually work for Gil in my summer stint here, but many of the things that we do, we reflect on the old days. And my best stories, and Willie just reminded me of it. We go over, and the first time I did this, there was a major storm here, and there was blowdowns all over the island. So, Will and Gil said, let's go get a chipper. I said, a what? A brush chipper. I said, how are we going to get one of those? Well, we're going to take a floating dock, which is the barge, right? And we're going to barge it over. And I said, well, how are we going to get that? And we're going to go with your truck. We're going to put it on your truck, and we're going to back it onto this thing. So now we're backing a $100,000 piece of equipment on and trying to make sure that Glenn wasn't around when we did it. And so that was it. We brought it over, we barged it over, and we filled 8 or 10 floaters up with just duff and underbrush and blowdowns, and we were able to chip it all similar to what you're seeing here. And by using that piece of technology, what it's done is it's created kind of an anchor so there's not erosion, so the water bars do hold it. So, going back to the old days, it was very similar to barging over probably the clay and the dirt for the ball field. So, yeah, we have technology, but we're still relying on the means of yesterday. So.
Miels is credited. Get ready. Now, you'll have even less time than I did to prepare your remarks. Is credited in a way of having a vision of the trails and of walking. And this camp, which has been a canoe tripping camp, and the walks were portages, the burdens with packs, paddles, and canoes. And Miels initiated the trails, walking the trails, and on the island, conserving the trails and the water bars. If you can say something about that.
Water bars. They harassed me about the water bars, and I won't name names, but there have been a couple who've said in returning from the 5 that they fell because of a newly installed water bar.
It was a different kind of bar.
Yeah, we have bars there. My first introduction to the concept of water bar came during my years of backpacking in the southeastern United States, specifically in the Great Smokies, where trail maintenance is a huge issue because of the amount of rainfall. And in some of the trails, some parts of the Appalachian Trail, the usage is pretty high, foot traffic. And so vegetation doesn't exist, and high rainfall can really produce some pretty dramatic trail erosion. But then over the years of backpacking through those mountains, I began to see these logs that were planted across the trails, and they inevitably were angled just the right way so that the water flowing downhill would be diverted off into a safe part, either to the left or the right, obviously, where erosion wouldn't occur. And the sand would build up behind that over time, so you had these steps. So when I came up here, and I'll have to give Lance credit once again, I'll do that every time I came in 1981. I was, yes, indeed, a recruit of Lance, and I didn't know what I was coming to do. I had no idea.
The accent was the giveaway right there.
But Lance convinced me it would be a great way to spend the summer. So in the course of the next few years trying to find something that I could contribute, the idea of water bars here on Pathfinder Island was a natural, because so many of the trails, especially from here, the high point down, were eroding pretty badly. So with power crew and my own volition, anytime a visitor would come and was game for some constructive work, we would go and find, in the case of, this was, of course, way before the chipping process came in, we'd find a blowdown or a leftover railroad tie that was just somewhere, and would place it somewhere where the worst of the erosion was, and then, of course, do it in a series. So coming back to the island yesterday for the first time in 15 years, and seeing all of the stuff that's now taken place with preventing erosion and making the island really look better and making it easier to walk around is just like, wow. I feel like a little kid who's come back 15 years later, and Christmas has really come in a big, big way, because things have really changed. And it would be great to have some before pictures and then some after pictures of where the trail was eroding, and then where we have all of this wonderful, they're so fancy, I hate to call them water bars, but these things that are across the trails that are helping preserve Pathfinder, and it makes it easier to get around. And I got a a charge out of doing that. We even took some pictures this morning of some of the ones that I think were what the power crew and I put down in those first summers when there was nothing to help. But that was one thing that I enjoyed doing. And while I've got Glenn right here, sort of a captive audience, and Mac's not here yet, and what these two guys have done in the 15 years since I was here is mind-blowing. And some of you have maybe been away for even longer periods of time and are coming back for this 100th celebration. But it's just, I can't find words to describe what has transpired, and the electricity here. I remember one of the highlights of going to bed back in the days of the generator, and I'm one who likes to get my night's rest, but when I'd get Creo settled down, I'd get in my bunk, and then at some designated time, the generator would be cut off. So suddenly, here was this incredible silence when you could hear the loons far away, and then on an occasional night or two this time of the year, the wolves would be howling in that direction, and Lance would be whispering, "Come out and see the meteors, come out and see the northern lights," and whatever. And it was just, now it's taken for granted, but of course those of you who were here in the days of the generator know what a intrusion, a necessary intrusion, I guess, since Ms. Purdy was no longer here with her wood stoves, on camp life. So it's been what the hydro has done, what has happened here in the last few years, and even some of this stuff looks pretty new. And then somebody told me there's another stack of water bars down there somewhere that needs to be installed. We're not doing that. We're not doing that today.
Thanks. When I came here first in 1965, that was, I think, the summer before the Department of Lands and Forests, and two guys who were in charge of nature lore and Indian lore were buddies and partners here. And again, I guess it's going to keep looking back at you, Lance, as this kind of legacy. And carrying on that legacy, which we've talked about, what technical changes can help preserve culture, like the iconic loon call, is why Michelle is here, who had responsibility both for nature and Indian lore, and really helped refocus camp on that part of its vision. The manifestation is how we take care of the land, but also how we identify what that land is about in the spirit. Michelle?
So I came in 1990 with Mac, and he had asked me to come early to develop like an environmental program. And so I was working with Dave Bannigan and developing that, and that's the year we started the compost pile, which was very popular. But it was a very transitional time. Like, the desire was to be environmental, but when things were difficult and heavy, sometimes they ended up in the lake. So we were very bipolar in our environmental movement at that point in time. We liked to burn some diesel and, compost our Cheerios at the same time. So we didn't really have a vision. I think it was a way we wanted to get there, but when things were hard, it was hard for us to stick to that vision, I think. So it's impressive, I think, to see how much that's changed in the time that I've been gone, because it seems like there's much more of a focus on that. Despite that, we have, I know it was a controversy getting the hydro. It was a controversy. People thought it would be, there'd be TVs in every tent. I don't know, but the noise and the smell, and I think also, like, a lot of times, like Brent Hurley was talking about being a CIT and the park people are gone, right? Like burning diesel on the ball up in the Indian Council, which is so anti everything that we're supposed to be about, and also very unsafe. So we've come a long way, I think, and not having those things on our island has improved things.
When you talk about how did you teach or where was your head at in teaching about Indian lore here?
Well, it was a little bipolar too. There was a lot of and Kristen Rogo was involved in that because it was sort of a legacy thing. I don't know whether that was by choice or by name that she got that job, but so a lot of times it was trying to use the old and marry it into the new way of where we wanted to go. But who's not here and who I think had the most to do with that was Brack. Like Brack really married we had our Indian lore program, we had nature lore, and we were trying to create when I came, we were trying to create a third, like, environmental piece. But really what Brack did was say these are all the same and we need to marry them. And I think that was the best thing that we did, is realizing that these aren't separate categories. They're all part of what we need to learn and carry in everything we knew, not just earn an AA in it, but practice it and live it. And I think that's more evident now in the way things are done. It's more thought about. ZEI? No, that was before me. That was Bob. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, what was that?
That's the next panel.
Want to talk about
Next panel. We're moving on.
Moving right along.
Mike.
So, so to do all these things in the time, and many of us were here that night when there was it was unclear what was going to happen and what was the vision and who was going to be. Was there going to be a steward of Camp Pathfinder? Slads and this guy Glenn stepped up, and I think we all will acknowledge and have, and I'm sure we'll hear more about this as this day goes by. This balance of the transformation of this place and the restoration of this place, and the maintenance and stewardship of this place. Everybody who comes here says it's never looked better, right? And yet, as whether it's the water bars, it still is here as opposed to washing into the lake, and to make it shine like a top, and to have it in a business way, sustainable as well as an environmental way, has been the stewardship on so many levels of Glen Arthur's, and you've spanned the time since before car phones or radio phones or iPhones, or before the hydro and those decisions. Tell us what it's been like, and where you see it going.
It's been a lot of fun. Obviously, it's been a great ride. Slads and I have had a terrific partnership together, and we look forward to doing it for a long time. Before I forget this one thought, though, as I sit here and look at the piers up here, we had Fred Lamke back in the 30s and 40s, and he did an incredible renaissance of architecture all throughout this island. And every year at the banquet, we acknowledge him as part of the Pathfinder Tripping Award, and we pass out the Fred Lamke Award, which is a paddle to the award winner. All the staff huts, all the kitchen, the lodges, Fred Lamke was instrumental in all of that. And everybody has remembered that legacy. But one of the other things that I think is really neat is think back to Swift and Roy and Mac. I mean, you had people that had no experience in carpentry or building. Jay, Sky, Shrub, Eric Willers, Brackley. In our present day, Pete's had experience, but Gil Stanley. All of these guys, and Will Hopkins, I'm missing some, all of these guys just came to campers as happy little kids and really didn't know squat about this sort of stuff. And they developed it and they learned it here. And that's the thing that gets Slads and I so charged, is that you can teach people life skills that can really blossom. And Gil Stanley, I don't know if he snuck out, but he's a perfect example of this. I mean, he has just grown into the job. He's done a magnificent focused task of staying on point. He's kind of a Renaissance person doing the video and the AV as well. But these are skills that are developed on the island. Warren McDermott, I don't know if there's Warren. The canoe shop. It's unbelievable to see what's going on up there in that canoe shop. We're building an army of canoe repair people, of carpentry people, stairs, steps, bookshelves, all around the island. And there can't be any greater high for Slads and I than to watch the army of bees around this place that are constantly working to improve it. So we're excited about it. I'm thrilled that we get the homegrown. We marry the homegrown with the professional. We had professional people in for the dining hall and with the lasers and being able to level it and bring it back to the luster that it was. That thing will be rock solid for years to come. The PX you saw last year's project, that was professional. The canoe shop, that was Warren's brainchild. Warren's the one that drew it out. We built the shell with the help of, all of a sudden I'm Kirby from Huntsville. Kirby was in here. All our guys had to schlep the lumber up the hill to get it to Kirby. Kirby had it up in less than a month. But then Warren's the one that put all the design in there, the cabinetry, and the flow of the building. So we just couldn't be happier with what's going on. And all of these skill sets have been learned here by the camp. So it's gratifying.
What's next on your vision in infrastructural hopes and dreams?
I have a vivid imagination, and Slads tempers my imagination, so the condos on the back of the island have been temporarily suspended, but every time I drive by Toronto and I see how close they are and I realize what property values are, it does come to mind. But next, a dining hall roof next year, which I know Pete Johnson's going to be intimately involved in. It needs replacing. The next one is the trading post. That trading post was donated in the 1930s by the Enos family from Buffalo. They were parents of campers here. They donated $4,000, and we got a magnificent facility on the island. We're going to bring the dining hall people back, the ones with the lasers, and we're going to straighten it out. So that means a lot of things are going to be moved around on it. And we're going to try and bring back the lower office and make it a media center, an audiovisual area. We're very excited about this. While we don't walk around with cell phones and computers on the island, the guys do take cameras and the GoPro things on the canoe trips, and they've made some incredible videos. And we want to give them the tools, just like we did in the canoe shop, to be able to put together media and audio and upload the things to YouTube. In essence, it's self-sustaining marketing on the island for the continuation of the program. So we're going to really, bring that center into something that's pretty special from a technology point of view. And that's another skill set that kids can learn, and they're really into that sort of thing. Another vision that I have that might be a year or two out is that I'd like to build another maintenance facility. This is still a dream, and Slads and I are talking about it, but we've had a lot of good talks on it. Probably the size of the canoe shop or a little smaller, somewhere near the old bug house site or the lantern shack or where the fire hose used to be, so that we get it a little bit away from the water. And my dream is to bring Lodge 1 back as sleepage. Knock out the lockers that are on the lakeside, create windows and or screens there because you've got the best view of the island there. When I was a kid, you used to sleep 8 campers on each side and 4 staff. That's 20. That means I don't have to build.
There you go. That's it. Very good. That's
well,
it. There we go.
It means that I don't have to rack and stack them and build new tent cabins all around the island. I've already got a facility that can do that. So we're psyched on doing that. That's some of the future thoughts, but it's all staying within the footprint that we already have. I mean, we're very sensitive to not trying to go willy-nilly all over the island and just keep creating additional facilities. The canoe shop, which Warren was so integrally involved in, I think is a great example of plopping a building in something that still looks like it's been there forever, and the greenery and the shrubbery around it, you wouldn't know that thing's only 2 years old. So I don't mean to babble too long, so I'll pass it back to...
No, that's great. I'm looking at Will, who is our timekeeper. If somebody's got something they want to say
Test.
or ask, that's the idea. Sally, Jesse, Raphael, right there with the mic.
Well, one of the parks guys there mentioned permits for things. How did you and how was it getting a permit for the canoe shop?
The canoe I'm a little challenged sometimes on permits. I hope there's not any park people around here. But on the canoe shop, we absolutely did it. We asked for permission, but it took forever, and they hadn't approved it by May 1st, and we had lumber here, all the infrastructure ready to go. Slads literally drove down there and sat on their doorstep until they would issue the permit because we were ready to go. And we said, we got a short window. We can only do this during the spring. Campers are here, July 1st. And they worked with us. And we played that one totally by the book. So we were totally by the book on that. Well, it's a small starter home. It's over on that side of the island.
Got one more?
I know with Michelle's and others' visions about environmental management have been so big, but also I understand there's so much more regulation involved from, I'm sure, the park and also from the province and Canada in general. What's the impact been of having to keep up with more and more regulation from an environmental standpoint?
I can take that. People always ask me, what does Slads do during the winter? You guys can't believe he's 10 times busier in the winter than he is in the summer, and he's got lots of stresses in his life during the summer. The number of regulatory agencies when we started off was maybe 2 or 3, the ones that you would expect. We're up to like 10, 12 of various different agencies that come in here and check us for something. And Slads and I have taken the attitude, while it's a big pain in the keister, that where we can, we will always work with them and do what they ask, even though we think it's silly, we do it. Because we want to be leaders in the camping community. And Slads is going to talk about this, his leadership in the OCA, and it's made a huge difference that's got profound impact on this camp. So if we play by the rules with them and we show leadership, we get the benefit of the doubt on so many situations. Transport Canada is a perfect example. These guys are over the top. We have had to put 7 of our staff to Admiral School to learn. Basically, you could drive a tugboat down the St. Lawrence River with the qualifications that these guys have. This is to drive the pontoon boat. We deal with it. Slads got in front of it. We actually brought in instructors here. We offered it up to other camps, and we probably had 10 other camps that came to the Rec Lodge for a week in June to take this admiralship course. When you see Gil Stanley, in addition to his many other talents, we talk about Admiral, and we salute him as we walk around the island. So that's one example, but we've got the health inspectors, we've got the fire inspectors. So Slads has to do all this. One of the biggest challenges is getting, we have all these campers that want to come through as staffs, and we're incredibly well-staffed, but there's this pushback on having foreign workers, and Americans are foreign workers. And while we have done a significant improvement in increasing our ratio of Canadian, when we started, we might have been 15, 16% Canadian population for our campers. We're up to 25, 6, 7. I think that's really great. We've made inroads in Toronto. But we want to be able to go and say to the regulatory people, this is what we're doing. So I digress. What Slads does in the winter is total, he's got the recruitment. He's got the staff development programs. He's got program developments. And he's got regulatory compliance stuff up the wazoo. I mean, it's really amazing. So,
well, thank you, and I'm getting the yank here for this panel. I just want to say, Glenn, that I just have always admired how supportive and what a fan you are of big government, and certainly you've given testimony to that today. So, thanks very much.